I've knitted the back, the face and the head, and I've joined together the muzzle with the nose, so there's the nose markers. Now I'm going to join the very front of the muzzle, which is where your very first cast on stitches from the beginning of the pattern. So we're talking like from page 17 in the pattern here. I've rushed ahead a bit because the rest of the knitting is quite basic. These are the important bits. So there I've joined it with back stitch, and I'm going to remove those nose and muzzle markers like so. So you can see that seam which becomes the front of the nose and the muzzle. You'll also notice that I've joined the neck seam, so that's what goes right the way up to the chin markers. That's there. That's the neck seam. And this gap here is going to be the head seam, so with right sides together I'm going to join that seam across. Sort of ease it together like that. Let's fold. And that seam will ultimately become where you kind of place the ears. So it's almost like an ear marker as well. And there's the seam. Just remove the markers as you go along. I've written that in the pattern as well, so just remove the ones I say to remove, because you'll need the other ones later. So there we have, that is the neck seam and the head seam. That's the head seam. So I'll just do the same to the other side. So I'm just finishing off the seam for the other side of the head seam. I'm sorry if you can hear the budgies in the background, by the way. I've tried to calm them down, but they're very excitable today and I don't know why. It's all to do with the cats, probably. So this is the head all turned out properly the right way around, and you can see that neck seam and the chin seam. And the next seam to work is the beneath the foreleg seam. So this is on page 20 of your pattern. And again, right sides together. I've just joined that little sort of V split, which will be just beneath the forelegs. There we are. That's turned out the right way. You keep that marker in as well because you need that later on. Just work the other side. You can see that V quite clearly there. So there we have 2 beneath the foreleg seams already done. So now I'm going to return to the stitches that I have on the needles, which are the hind leg stitches. The stitch that's on the long sort of circular needle there are the tail stitches, so we're just going to leave those to one side for a moment. This is the hind leg that's already been knitted, and this is how you fold it. So you fold it from the colourway change, sort of across the back, like that. That's kind of how it works. Oh, this bit actually. Now, when you do the heel, you kind of might end up with a little bit of a hole, which you haven't actually turned and wrapped at that particular stage. So just a couple of little stitches just to close that hole is absolutely fine. You might not have that hole actually, it depends on the type of yarn you've used, but just a couple of stitches is good. And then when you turn it round the right way, you can see that little heel that's created by those short rows, so they are quite important. And you can shape that little tiny heel with your fingers just to get that angle nice. So now you're going to find the row ends of that leg. and you're going to pick up and knit stitches across for the little paw, the little hind leg paw. So this is the left paw, so you're going to start with the cast on edge, which is on your right, and you're picking up all along to the cast off edge. I've used white here, but you can use whatever colour you like. If you want little black paws or little paws the same colour as the rest of the kit, that's fine. And now we're going to join the leg. So I'm sewing across the paw base first. So I've got my right sides together to do this bit, so I can do back stitch. And then when I've turned it out the right way, I'm going to use mattress stitch, and I'm going to join all along the hind leg, from the top of the hind leg all the way down to that seam, that paw base seam there. You'll notice that the hind leg seam is actually at the front of the hind leg. So I'm going to fold that leg, matching those markers together. So the red marker is my hind leg seam marker, and I'm joining that together with my inner leg seam marker. As I said before, if you use the same colour markers as me, it'll make life a lot easier for you when it comes to the making up stage, or even similar colour like thread or yarn or something. And I've made a little colour guide in the pattern too, so you can sort of follow that as well. So join all along from those markers, those two markers together, all the way down with mattress stitch to the seam which is at the base of the paw. There's a little bit of easing, but it should be okay. So there we have our left hind leg. Now I'm going to stuff that. So I think the best way of showing you how much stuffing I use is if I just make little balls of stuffing, so that you know how much approximately to use. So stuff the paw first. The paw is quite well stuffed. And the leg itself isn't overly stuffed, but enough to hold its shape. So push the stuffing into the shaping, that heel, and then into the sort of top of the thigh. You can always come back to the legs later on and add more stuffing before you sew the whole thing up together. This is just a start, really. I'll just quickly mention about the type of stuffing I used. It's called uncarded stuffing, and you can get it from sites that sell stuffing for those mohair bears that people make. You can get kits and things like that. I think it's also called polyflock stuffing, but uncarded is what I've searched for and always found. So the next stage is to sew it's kind of the back upper part of the leg. So I'm matching together the rear hind leg marker with the back leg seam marker. And I'm going to mattress stitch along to the tail seam marker, which is that green one there. I'm going to leave that edge, that cast off edge, open because that's going to be joined to the belly later. So the final stage of the joining of the hind leg will come later on when you'll join this hind leg back seam to the row ends from the tail end of the back. Knit up your tail and then join it together, but take care not to join across those cast on edges. You'll need those later on for picking up for the belly. So now we're on to the forelegs, and we're going to pick up for the left foreleg purlwise. Picking up between the kitten's left foreleg back marker across to the kitten's left top foreleg marker. So you push your knitting needle in from the front of the work into the back, and you catch the yarn on the wrong side and pull it through to the right side. Then this is how you do purlwise pickup stitches. Sorry the image is falling off the screen, but you can just about see what I'm doing, I think. There we go. So your pickup stitches are actually on the right side of the work. You work the foreleg with that cast on, which will fold backwards, which will become the back of the leg, and there's your paw. Fold that leg in half, matching the markers together, and match a stitch. The seam is at the back of the foreleg. So for Kitten's right foreleg, you're going to pick up on the right side, and again from the right foreleg back marker all the way to the top foreleg marker. So for the foreleg back, the markers to join are the inside foreleg marker, which you added after you cast it on for the foreleg back, and the foreleg back marker. Leave that cast on edge open. You'll need that to join to the belly later on. As you can see, I'm using little small balls of stuffing at a time to really get into each shaping, little step at a time. This sort of build up the leg as I go along. Instead of completely just stuffing it quickly, I'm taking my time, just so I get that flexibility that I want. Now, if I can just show you, all of these markers that are remaining are the markers that you'll need to join the back to the belly. And speaking of which, these are the two markers that you'll pick up the stitches for the belly. Picking up 5 stitches either side of the tail seam. So here is the belly that I've knitted, and I've added markers along the way as I've been knitting it, and I've matched the colour of the markers with the back colours so that you can join them together later on, colour for colour. And then worked all the way along from the nose seam to the cheeks to the chin, all the way down the body, matching the markers colour for colour. Another thing I did, I worked on one side at a time up to a point, so I'll work from one lot of markers to another lot of markers on the left hand side, then do similarly on the right hand side, so kind of working chunks as I go along instead of just doing one side all at once. I just found it easier doing it that way, and also sort of helps keeping the kitten symmetrical as you go along, because you may have to ease some of the seams together, but at least if you've done the one side, then you can sort of see how the other side will fit as well, so you won't get a lopsided kitten basically. So the parts of the head that you really want to stuff really well are the muzzle, the very front bit of the forehead, and the back of the neck to get that lovely sort of back of head shape that kittens have. You'll notice that I'm joining sections at a time, sort of in between markers. A, because it's just more interesting to join like that, and also it kind of guarantees that I get a symmetrical seam each side. The parts of the body to concentrate on when you're stuffing is that front breast seam, the top of the forelegs, kind of like the shoulder joint, but the little bit around the neck, don't stuff that too much. You want that sort of quite loose and fleshy, so you can pull it out like I'm doing here. Pinch it like a bit like very loose flesh. If you stuff it too much, you'll end up with a really fat neck. So the last little pair of seams for the joining of the belly to the back is to join that little bit of belly there across that cast off edge, which is at that hind leg, and then that last little seam which joins the back of the hind leg to the tail, and then you will join that sort of angle that you've created there together. So just join that seam first. close that gap. This is kind of the last chance you'll get to stuff your kitten at this end anyway, although you'll still have the bit at the eye, so all is not lost. You still need some more stuffing. Just join that bit there. It's the belly to the back. And then you're going to lift up that back leg part. Join those two seams together. With mattress stitch, and that creates that lovely sort of hind leg to back seam. If you do this quite carefully, as I say, it's mattress stitch, but if you join it so that the stitches are just beneath that rounded edge, then you'll create, almost actually on the seam, then you'll create the lovely sort of joint there, sort of rear leg joint. This little seam I'm doing here, I really like it. It's the first time I've ever done it where I've actually created a seam and then stuffed it and then sewn those two seams together. It creates like a little pillow effect, which is quite pleasing actually with the hind legs. Now the stuffing part is, I think, really important. I've tried to show you how much stuffing I've actually used by giving you sort of handful sizes, if you like. Basically, it's putting the stuffing in so that you're emphasising the shape, but you're not actually really stuffing so that you're going to bulk out the shape. So you'll still have an element of flexibility within the sort of knitted piece. Concentrate on where I've done the shaping, like the short row shaping, and where the shaping, like the back of the neck, and the little muzzle rounded. Now, almost like think of how a cat looks whilst you're stuffing. So as well as the stuffing, I also do a lot of shaping around, which helps with the stuffing in it. So I'm sculpting, stuffing, sculpting, that kind of thing. This is the embroidering the face bit. I create a Y shape with threaded up cotton. Really go to town on this part if you like, or just do the bare minimal, just a simple Y shape. Tells you that it's a cat's face. I like to put these little nostrils in, I think they look quite cute. And then I'm going to fill that top bit later with a little bit of pink, just for a little nose. And you may have seen some whiskers in some of my photos as well. That actually is just some cut strands from an artist's paintbrush and then glued in place. So obviously it's not really suitable for children, it's more for show, but it's really quite effective. Okay, now we're going to insert the eyes. I've left these right to the end of this particular pattern, as you can put them in earlier if you like. If you find it easier to put the eyes in as you've made the head up before you've actually sewn the rest of the body, then that's absolutely fine. So pop the toy eyes onto the knitted eye and insert it into the space. Then I use doubled up mohair yarn. You can use sewing thread if you like. Separate that doubled up thread and use the first strand to sew the eye in place. Actually get it in there and secure it in. And then the second strand, I'm going to go around the eye again just to neaten up the edges. sort of detailing will apply to the little paws. Just some little simple lines and maybe some claws, or you could do little toe beans, I think they're called. And finally the ear time. So two ears, both exactly the same as each other. Join the inner ear to the outer ear, and then place the ear onto the head. Now if you remember where I told you where the seam for the head side was, that kind of is a basis of where you're going to place the ear. So if you imagine the sort of the center of the ear onto that seam, and then you're going to pull the back down beyond that towards the back of the body, and the front two corner bits of the ear will be kind of in front of that seam. You see where I put the pins there? So create like a triangle around that seam, like that. So you see that seam in the middle and the triangle. And then just carefully join the ear to the head. Make nice little neat whipping stitches all the way around the back, onto the head, back of the ear onto the head. The two corner bits towards the front of the head. So that ear is actually sitting over that seam, so you won't see the seam at all anymore. And that's basically it. Have fun photographing her. She's very flexible and very sweet, very kitten-like, I think. And so thank you for watching. Bye.